There are only 3 traits that avoidants secretly see as irresistible. Now the keyword there, of course, being secretly. These are the traits that avoidants will never admit that they want, but their biology gives them away every single time. And what better way to talk about these traits than by going back to preschool? You'll see what I mean by that in a moment. All right, before you are 3 shapes. You have a parallelogram, a trapezoid, and a triangle. Now, each one of these shapes is going to represent a trait that an avoidant is wildly attracted to. Now, what you're going to find as we get through this video is that all of these traits will fit together to form a more powerful shape. Again, more on that in a moment. For now, let's just start with our triangle. So the triangle is going to represent a Buddhist non-attachment attraction. All right, are you ready to have your mind blown? About 7 months ago, I posted this video. 100 avoidants came back. Here's what actually worked. The TLDR is that I took 100 of my success stories, people who had gotten back with their exes, and listed out all the patterns that connected the stories together. Now, the very first pattern that I talked about was this idea of a genuine emotional detachment. Basically, the people who did the best ended up letting go. They emotionally detached from the situation. But then there's this. This is a page put together by Dr. Pascal Vritica. Hopefully I said that right. Essentially, this page combats the biggest attachment myths out there. And due to the fact that it's kind of my job to stay up to date on these things, I found this page really interesting to read, specifically Myth 31, where he talks a bit about what attachment theory and Buddhism have in common. Yep, you heard that right. Buddhism. See, apparently there's this growing belief online that avoidants are walking around like Buddhist monks, detached because they've transcended attachment. Dr. Vritica basically shuts that idea down. But it did get me thinking. While avoidants may think they have achieved non-attachment, they really haven't. I think what they're really attracted to is someone who is non-attached. See, now you see where that whole letting go concept comes into play. First things first though, what in the world is Buddhist non-attachment? Well, contrary to popular belief, it's not avoiding, distancing, or shutting down emotionally. It's the opposite. It's a mental state where you can fully love, fully care, and fully participate in life without clinging to things as a source of permanent security, identity, or control. Think of it like this. You hold everything with open hands instead of clenched fists. So this is the key, right? This is what those people in my 100 avoidants came back. Here's what actually worked video we're talking about. This is letting go. Well, no, avoidants feel safer around people who have qualities that coincidentally resemble non-attachment. But they're not drawn to Buddhism. They're drawn to people who don't cling or pressure them. I'll give you an example. Let's say you have a hardcore Buddhist monk here right now, and this monk has all the extreme qualities you could ever expect. He doesn't cling to outcomes, he doesn't seek reassurance, he stays calm under stress, he doesn't take things personally, he lets emotions rise and fall without reacting, he accepts impermanence, he doesn't try to control other people, he's fully present without needing anything in return. Here's the thing though, a lot of these qualities sing to an avoidant: the calmness, the non-reactivity, the lack of pressure, the emotional spaciousness. But an avoidant isn't actually attracted to Buddhism itself. They're attracted to the effects of non-attachment. So you know how back in the day kids used to say WWJD, what would Jesus do, in response to how to handle different situations? With avoidance, I actually think you should probably be asking WWMD, what would the monk do? 9 times out of 10, the answer is letting go. Okay, let's move on to our parallelogram, which is going to serve as quality number 2, the adaptive brain, not the lizard one. All right. Before we get started here, you need a bit of context on what the triune brain model is. The concept was developed by neuroscientist Paul MacLean in the 1960s. And quite frankly, it's a really interesting concept. Before you on the screen are 3 types of brains: the inner reptile brain, the middle mammalian brain, and the outer human brain. Now, the best way to look at these 3 brains is by literally viewing them as layers. You have the human brain at the top. This is sort of where things like logic, planning, and self-control dominate. It's the rational layer. Then you have the mammalian brain in the middle. This is where things like emotions and bonding take over. It's also supposedly where attachment is supposed to live. And then at the bottom, you have the reptile brain. This is where things like fight, flight, and freeze prevail. Now, the popular narrative that is going around is that during stress, or emotional stress in particular, we drop down into those lower layers, meaning when you're afraid or anxious or overwhelmed or insecure, your reptile brain takes over. Your emotions get hijacked and your rational brain, well, it goes offline. In other words, whenever an avoidant gets triggered, they go full reptile. It's a really cool concept. There's just one problem. According to Dr. Vertica, this understanding of the model is wrong. The brain doesn't work like that, and attachment doesn't work like that. First, he says, recent neuroscience findings show that the triune brain model is severely flawed. The human brain is not an onion with a tiny reptile inside. And then he doubles down, saying, no brain structure has only one specific function and never works in complete isolation. He even makes it clear that the whole idea of stacked evolutionary layers isn't real. The human brain did not linearly evolve from a reptile brain. And then the knockout punch. Individual differences in attachment can be seen across the entire human brain. So the idea that avoidants drop down into the reptile brain or regress or shut off the human part, that's not neuroscience, it's a myth. Instead, the brain is made of interconnected networks working together that activate and deactivate dynamically. There is no single structure that can often explain one emotion or behavior. Everything happens in patterns, not layers. And this is crucial for understanding attachment. It's funny, a lot of therapists or coach will still say things like, trauma puts you in your reptile brain, or avoidants live in their reptile brain. Secure people, well, they operate from their human brain. That kind of thinking, according to Vertica, is wrong. And I think a strong case can be made that I think it does something quietly damaging both to them and to you. Yes, avoidants are confused people. If you look at their relationship history, you'll likely find that they've left a trail of emotional bruises without really meaning to. And when someone has hurt you deeply and repeatedly, you start reaching for any explanation that makes their behavior make sense. The triune brain model becomes that explanation. See, they're just in their reptile brain. That's why they shut down. That's why they ran. That's why they're basically a lizard. I mean, it's simple. And it's kind of fascinating. It gives you a neat little box to put all of your pain into, but there's a hidden cost to that. The moment you reduce an avoidant to a reptile, you stop seeing the human behind their defenses, and they can feel it. Avoidants, especially avoidants, are hypersensitive to judgment, to resentment, and being seen as less than. And when they sense that from you, even in the smallest way, they're going to retreat even further. So yes, the reptile brain narrative might feel good for a moment, but it won't make you irresistible to them. It'll often have the opposite effect. The better way to view all dismissive and fearful avoidance is with the explanation I gave in this video. Now, I'm going to do a total cop-out and play a clip from that video. So I wanted to start with the statement that Dr. Garrison said that shocked me the most.
When you think about avoidant is anxiety, really, because anxiety is built around the concept of avoidance. We can't be anxious and not avoid. It just comes with the territory.
Okay, there's a lot to unpack here with that statement, and perhaps the best way to think about it is using a tree. So trees obviously don't pop up out of nowhere. They start first with this tiny little seed, and then based on the environment they're in, they grow and evolve into eventually what they become. Well, insecure attachment styles in general sort of work the same way. It starts with a seed. So what Dr. Garrison is essentially saying is that that seed is almost always anxiety. So if anxiety is the seed, then your attachment style is just the way that the seed learned to grow in order to survive its environment. So for some people, that anxiety grows upward. It reaches out for reassurance and connection and closeness. That's the anxious, preoccupied attachment style, in case you were wondering. But for avoidance, it grows inward. The roots kind of twist around the fear itself. They don't chase the anxiety, they run from it. You see, there's nothing lizard brain about it. Their avoidance is just a coping mechanism that just feeds their biggest fear, that if you see the real them, you'll judge them, control them, or try to change them. I don't think many of their partners try to do this at all, but the point is, avoidants think they do. So when someone comes along who doesn't treat them like a malfunctioning reptile brain creature and doesn't say that your childhood made you broken, they don't therapize them or analyze them, they don't imply that they're emotionally inferior, and they respect their adaptations, it can create a level of safety and relief that feels magnetic, and that rounds out our parallelogram. You know, almost every single day I'm getting these DMs asking about how people can coach with me. And I want everyone to have the opportunity to coach with me. So for a limited time, I'm doing free live group coaching for my followers only. You'll be able to attend a live stream with me or one of my coaches inside of the Reconnection Room every Sunday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. All you need to do is simply click the link in the description below to sign up. Okay, where were we? Next up, we have the trapezoid, what I'm calling the Synchrony mid-range. All right, first things first, what in the world is synchrony? Well, synchrony is when two people's bodies and behaviors line up during an interaction. Think about things like matching each other's tone or mirroring facial expressions or adjusting your posture. It's your nervous system and someone else's nervous system moving in the same direction at the same time. The invisible in sync feeling between people. Now, everyone assumes the more synchrony you have in a relationship, the better. But according to Dr. Vertica, this is a myth. All right, this blew my mind when I read it, and I'm just going to keep quoting from Dr. Vertica. He says that parental overstimulation, intrusiveness, and inconsistency are known to predict insecure infant attachment outcomes. This kind of proves that too much synchrony is actually harmful and not beneficial. For synchrony to be beneficial, it needs to be appropriate and context dependent and not always indiscriminately high. Synchrony isn't about more, it's about calibrated attunement. There thus is an optimum mid-range of synchrony, with both too little and too much synchrony being linked to attachment difficulties. So all of this is to say that constantly overwhelming attunement, excessive mirroring, constant emotional matching actually creates insecure attachment, not secure. So the idea that the perfect emotional attunement equals secure is actually wrong. There's a healthy middle range of synchrony, an optimal zone, and going outside of it in either direction is going to lead to issues. The real question is, what does that optimal zone look like? I think the best way to answer this is to look at things in terms of what avoidance can handle and what they cannot. All right, so let's take something like emotional intensity. Avoidance can handle warmth and not heat. They can handle low pressure vulnerability. They'll even handle steady, even-toned communication. What they can't handle is emotional urgency. Think of things like, we need to talk right now. They can't really handle flooding, crying, spirals, panic, or really big emotional reveals too soon. In short, they can handle feelings, but not force combined with those feelings. And this can handle versus cannot handle concept permeates all aspects of their relationships. But there is something kind of bothering me about this. If the optimal zone for synchrony always lies in you not being able to express yourself, then won't you just end up unhappy? Well, I think that's the wrong way to look at things. The optimal zone shouldn't be about suppressing your emotions, it's about regulating the delivery system of those emotions. There's a difference, a massive one, between suppressing your feelings and communicating your feelings in a grounded, measured way. Now, contrary to what the internet wants you to believe, avoidants aren't allergic to your feelings, but they are allergic to your feelings when they are delivered with a lot of emotional pressure. So once again, coming back to our can handle versus cannot handle concept, they can handle a phrase like, look, the situation brings up a lot of fear for me and I want us to work through it. They can't handle, why aren't you answering me right now? Or you don't love me because you're not reacting. Or if you'd cared, you'd fix this immediately. One is emotional expression, the other is emotional force. Now, the point of teaching you about the optimal zone isn't to cause you to lose your voice. It's to help you gain it because you're expressing it in a way that their nervous system can stay present for. Now, the point of this video is to show you the traits that avoidants secretly see as irresistible. And I gave you 3 shapes to represent them. The triangle, which is the Buddhist non-attachment, the parallelogram, the adaptive brain, and the trapezoid, the synchrony mid-range. But the part I don't ever see anyone talking about is the fact that individually these shapes are limited. A triangle has only 3 sides, a parallelogram has 4, a trapezoid only has 4 as well. Alone, all of these qualities, all of these shapes are interesting, but they're not complete. Something I've observed is that that's kind of exactly how online relationship advice works. You'll see a lot of these videos saying these 3 traits will make you irresistible, or these 5 traits make you make an avoidant commit, Everyone loves absolutes. The truth is that no single trait makes you irresistible to an avoidant. Only the combination does. Because when you take these 3 shapes, the triangle, the parallelogram, the trapezoid, and you bring them together, something special begins to happen. The pieces snap into place, the edges align, the gaps start to disappear, and suddenly 3 incomplete shapes form something new. A hexagon, 6 sides, 6 points of stability, a symbol of balance, structure, and psychological safety. That's what avoidants respond to. The integration of all 3. Someone who can care without clinging. Someone who sees them as adaptive and not broken. And someone who finds the optimal zone and stays there. When those 3 pieces click together, that's when the avoidant nervous system finally says, okay, I can relax here. And that's the real secret. The one the internet never tells you. That's what makes you irresistible.